Hello, it's Henry again here, and this video is just to show you sometimes how tricky different problems can be. And I'm going to give you two examples that happened this summer. The first one was with my car. I was driving along, and suddenly all of the lights on the panel would start to flash. The car drove fine. Once in a while the radio would quit. All kinds of spooky stuff going on. And I had the mechanic look at it and everything else, and when he was finished he told me that what it was the connector of the battery. It wasn't loose, but the wire and how it had connected to the connector was getting a little tired, and when they replaced that, all the problems went away. So it shows you, there's no signal or light that goes on and says, oh yeah, okay, this is caused by, a poor battery cable or whatever. And when you get to an RV, because they're built by hand, every RV is a little different. And of course, when RVs get older, ours being the best part of 20 years old now, the company's been out of business for 10 years, and no one's seen them before, and there isn't really service manuals and so on, and so you have to kind of figure it out. And so if you are the operator of the RV and you know a little bit about what you're doing, you often know more about some of these internal systems than a mechanic would. It just depends on their experience and what they've seen before. Now, the problems that I've discussed in my entry step problems and some of the troubles we had going to Halifax, most of it can be set down to one little connection problem, but it didn't present that way. The main breaker and the interconnect breakers or solenoids for the RV are connected by metal bars that are called bus bars. And these are also the mounting hardware for the circuit board. and this also allows connections to occur. Now, if you don't see them as connectors, if you don't see them primarily as conductors, the bus bars, if you just think of them as metal framing to hold the circuit board, and one nut at the back is a little bit loose because you can't quite tighten it, you don't think that much about it because you think it's just a mounting bolt, and you've got three good ones, so what's wrong with, one slightly loose? There are worse things, and it was hard to get in there and so on. But of course what that is a connection. And when I finally scoped all this out, I had the following symptoms. I mean, the first thing that happened that I remember was the interstep started to fail. And as you have seen in one of my videos, that I fixed it by direct wiring it to the battery. And then it was almost sequential, which was kind of strange. I fixed then we couldn't charge. We weren't getting anything from the engine, and we weren't getting anything from a plug-in to charge the house batteries. Now, the plug-in situation, the 120 volt plug in the compartment is still not working, and I'm not sure why, but the short answer was just to run an extension cord down the side of the RV and plug it into the side. When you're in a campground, it's no problem, and it's an easy fix, and it saves you a lot of trouble. But why the engine wasn't charging, okay, so that was a symptom. And when I got that fixed, then the driver's seat, the power driver's seat, wouldn't move anymore. So there was this kind of phantom problem. So when I I think I figured it out, was that one of those bolts on the bus bar wasn't tight enough, and hence you weren't getting the amount of current flow that you would need to do these things. So I went in with my nut driver, and I was able to tighten it up without having to find another wrench, and that was it. And knock on wood, the RV has worked beautifully since then. So just to say, for those of you, you young engineers, so to speak, out there, It's not just a spacecraft or something that has these complex failure scenarios, but you have these other situations like this where you've got these phantom problems, and you have to try to sort through what's causing that challenge. And it's tricky because I spent $700 on the step, of which, say, $200 or $300 I had serviced the transmission, which was going to happen anyway, because that's another thing. I got two codes on my transmission. And, of course, when this was fixed, not only did the codes go away, but my ABS system began to work again, which hadn't worked for 5 years because I didn't understand how this was going. And I get in the code on the transmission because, once again, of this intermittent power supply problem. So it can be an expensive mistake or expensive problem if you're not extremely deliberate in how you diagnose. I'll give you another thing that happened, and I have no idea why this came about. I was found that the temperature control on the dash would no longer work. And so I spoke to my mechanic about it, and he told me that what is called a blend door actuator, it's basically an apparatus that has a small motor attached to it that responds to the dash thermal setting. And I searched the internet high and low, and I couldn't find a replacement for that thing anywhere. So anyhow, I was getting ready for the trip to Halifax this summer, and I look around and I trace the wires back, see if I can make this thing work even if I have to, again thinking of this phantom problem. And here was an inline fuse buried up in the dash. I pull the cover off and the fuse is missing. So someone had taken it out for some reason and not put it back in again. So I put the right fuse in, closed it up, and suddenly the motor worked right away. So it was amazing how quickly you can fix some of these things by just following things through. It can be darn tricky, and I'm not pretending for a minute that you. And the other thing again is that the amount of line that they give you with these connectors is very short, so it's a real problem to extend them. And sometimes you can't get in there very easily. It's underneath the driver's seat and it's underneath the dash. And to get in underneath there is really difficult. So, but it's some fascinating things if you can look past the frustration. And of course, it often fails just when you're ready to go use the RV or you want to do something fun. And here you're staring at this for 6 or 7 or 8 hours, and probably 6 hours of it is just what the heck is wrong with it. And then the 2 hours is necessary to do things. But it's too bad in the situation I found myself in back in May or June with the entry step. All I had to do was tighten that one bolt, and I would have the entry step, the seat, the transmission, all fixed just like that. So, it's a tough lesson, but it's also an important one, and that's why I want to share it with everyone. Thank you for watching.